Hello and welcome to my May wrap-up. In May, I read 8 books for a total of 2,715 pages, and I had a 3.38 average rating. This definitely wasn't my best reading month, and I have talked about a lot of these books in other videos, but let's go ahead and go through them. This is probably going to be a pretty quick video just because I don't have a lot to say about many of these books, but let's go ahead and talk about them. The first book I read this month was Eco Revolution by Penn. This one is a nonfiction book all about the environment, about sustainability, and it's about this author, specifically like her journey into how she became an environmental activist, and I thought that was just really cool to get her perspective on things. I will say this book does read a bit beginner heavy, so if you've read a lot of eco nonfiction before, you probably won't get too much out of this one, but I do think it is still a really good book for everyone to pick up and read. It is a very short one, it's under 300 pages, and this one I found just gave me a lot of hope for the future and for climate change. I just thought this was a really good one and I gave it 4 stars. This month I also did a 24-hour readathon where I let my Instagram followers decide what I read, and I read 2 books in that video and I also got about halfway through another one. But the first book that I finished was Take the Lead by Alexis Daria. This is an adult romance following these 2 characters who end up on this reality dance competition together. One of them is a dancer who has been on many seasons of this show, and our male love interest, he is actually on this wilderness survival reality TV show, but he was brought onto the dance reality show, and the company is trying to force this romantic relation between them in order to boost views and to get people talking and speculating about the relationship. And it's a lot about that and their dynamic because they are obviously attracted to each other, and they end up getting into a relationship with each other that they are trying to keep private, but it is hard with paparazzi and all of that going on. But while I do think this is a solid book and definitely one worth checking out if it sounds interesting to you, this one I do think leaned a little more heavy into the physical chemistry between these 2 characters. There are many scenes of them sleeping together, and I don't mind that in books. I just feel like that was their entire relationship and we never actually got their chemistry together or why they actually liked each other. This is definitely a couple that after finishing the book I don't think stays together long term. It's one of those books. It was very fun to read, but for a romance, it just didn't really do it for me. I also read Aquicorn Cove by Kay O'Neill, and this is a middle grade graphic novel. I did give this one 4 stars, and this is another book all about the environment. Specifically, this book is dealing with coral reefs and how people can take part to protect coral reefs. I just thought this was such a cute book. Definitely one worth checking out. It follows our main character who is visiting her mother's hometown, and her mother has passed away, but she is visiting a family member there, and she is just learning all about coral reefs, and it's just really cute, and I love the artwork. I also really love this author. I've read, I believe, every book that this author has written, so yeah, I think this is a great one to try out. During that 24-hour readathon, I did start Under the Oak Tree by Suji Kim. I did not finish it during the readathon, but I did finish it in the month of May, and I'm giving this one 1 stars. I really did not enjoy this book at all. I originally picked this book up because my friend recommended it to me. She read the webcomic of this story and it was reformatted to be an actual novel. However, I do think from what I've heard from my friend and also just seeing other people's reviews of this one that they did change a little bit of stuff. And this one was just, it is a romantasy, but the romance in this one was not very consensual. There's a lot of coercion, and I just did not like our male love interest in this book. And I know in the webcomics and everyone who's a fan of that series really loves him, and I just did not get that. Again, I do think there is a big difference between the actual webcomic and this novelization, but it was really bad. These characters also just don't do anything. There's no plot. This is a 500-page book and nothing happens. It's basically about this soldier, Riften, who comes back from war. He's now a very well-respected soldier, very popular, and he comes back for his wife that he married, I think 3 years ago, but they only met the one time, and it's just their relationship. He basically takes her to his like castle and just like coerces her into a sexual relationship with him. And they are married, but before their wedding they've never met, so they only met on their wedding day, and then it has been 3 years. So these characters don't really have any sort of relationship, and yeah, this dude basically just wants a sexual relationship with her, and there's nothing else there. There are some fantasy elements in here that I thought were really interesting and could have been cool to see explored a bit more. Definitely like at the end of this book, this is also only the first one, this is like a series, but at the end of this one, which I'm not spoiling anything, but there is some magical elements that are introduced, like some sorcery, and I did think those elements were pretty cool, but again, they weren't really explored. And also we kind of just see Riften just being upset that his wife found something that she likes, and yeah, this was just a very hard read and I really hated it. I also did a video where I was reading down my NetGalley TBR, so I do have 4 of those books to tell you guys about. The first one is The Last Time We Drowned by Saratoga Schaefer. This is one I gave 3.5 stars. This is like a mystery thriller. We're following our main character, who is a book influencer. She has a bookstagram that she's pretty famous on, and she ends up getting this opportunity to go onto this influencer yacht. So it's basically a yacht that has a bunch of influencers, and it's kind of like a content house where they're all there just to like promote this yacht and also to make their own content on a yacht, like that influencer kind of lifestyle. But there ends up being a freak storm that happens, and so all of these influencers are trapped in this yacht and someone ends up dead. And so it is like that locked room kind of mystery vibe. There are some thriller elements to it as well, but I thought this was a really solid book. I have read one other book by this author and I absolutely loved it, so I knew going into this one that I would love the writing style, which I definitely did. And as far as like a mystery goes, because I'm not really that much of a mystery reader, I'm just not someone who wants to guess what happens in a book, but this one did hook me. I do think it was a little predictable at times, but still a very solid read. I also read I Kissed Her First by Betty Cayouette, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. This one was the best book that I read in May. This is a sapphic romance between a pop star and her personal chef. I thought this one was just so cute. Definitely a really good summer read, but this one is following our pop star character who is going on her first world tour, and then we have her personal chef. This is going to be her last summer where she is being a chef. Even though being a chef is her dream, she is going to school, and she did promise her dad that she would pursue a career other than being a chef. So this is like her last summer of being a chef, and we get these two characters connecting over grief. Both these characters do have past grief that they are both working through, and yeah, while it is a pretty emotional book, I do think it was one that was very cute, one that absolutely hooked me and I flew through, and just a great book all around, and I would definitely recommend this one. Die For Me by Shirlene Oboubi is another really good one. I gave this one 4 stars. This is a paranormal romance following our main character, who is a cardiologist, and she ends up getting into a relationship with a younger man. I want to say he's like 10 years younger than her maybe, but he is 27, so he's not like super young or anything. But they end up getting into this relationship and some paranormal things end up happening. I thought this one was really good. I loved the paranormal twist in this one. And this one also has a bit of thrilling elements that end up happening that I thought were really interesting and sort of a different take on this kind of story. And yeah, this book just really shocked me, and it's just another one I'd really recommend. Again, I talk more about these books in that NetGalley reading blog, so I'm trying to keep it short and sweet for this video because I feel like I've talked about them so much before, and if you're not new to my channel, you are probably sick and tired of me talking about these books, but the last one I read for this video was Milkteeth by Starling, which I gave 3 stars. This is a horror book that takes a really interesting twist on vampires and vampire lore. This one is following our main character, who is in charge of taking care of fledgling vampires. So in this universe, when someone gets turned into a vampire, they aren't actually allowed to drink human blood. They have to drink the blood of another vampire, or else still turn into a ghoul. And so our main character is basically this nursemaid where she allows all these fledgling vampires to feed off of her in order to like grow up into like an actual vampire and go out on the world on their own. So at the beginning of this book, she is in charge of 2 fledglings, and she ends up getting this 3rd fledgling put into her care, but this one has actually tasted human blood before arriving to our main character's like underground office area. And so our main character has to figure out how to help this fledgling vampire, and she sort of gets obsessive in this need to care for all of these fledgling vampires. And I just thought this was a really interesting twist on vampires and the lore of that. I do really enjoy this author's writing. I think she does a great job at writing like a dark, creepy atmosphere. I did give this book 3 stars just because I felt some parts of it did drag out and some parts at the end weren't really fleshed out. We do get this big sort of transformation at the end that I just would have liked explored a bit more. And yeah, there are some sapphic undertones as well in this book, which I really enjoyed, but yeah, this was a solid read. But those were the 8 books that I read in May. It was definitely a bit of a mixed bag month. I read some really good books, I read some really bad books, but yeah, May was just a very interesting month for me. I was also in a bit of a reading slump. Like I started like a whole bunch more books. I'm currently in the middle of like 4 other books that I started in May and just haven't finished or haven't picked up. And yeah, I was in a bad reading slump in May, but I still managed to read 8 books. I got a couple books off of my TBR, which I'm really thankful for. But definitely let me know in the comments below what books you read in May, what was your favorite book you read in May, and have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? If you have, definitely let me know your thoughts on them. But thank you guys so much for making it this far into the video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!